All right, and we're back again for further adventures from the original Adventures of Hank the Cowdog by John R. Erickson. Chapter 5, Another Bloody Murder. When we crossed the cattle guard that put us back on the ranch, I felt a change come over me. Back in town, I'd been just another happy-go-lucky dog without a care in the world. But back on the ranch, I felt that same crushing sense of responsibility that's known to most leaders and people in high places, such as presidents, prime ministers, emperors, and such like that. Being head of a ranch security is a great honor, but also a dreadful burden. I remembered the chicken house murder. I still didn't have any suspects, or, well, maybe I had too many suspects. Everyone was a suspect. Well, except the milk cow. I'd pretty much ruled her out, and the porcupine, since they only eat trees. But every other creature on the ranch was a suspect, except Drover. He's too chicken to kill a chicken. Now, when we got home, I trotted up to the chicken house and went over the whole thing in my mind. While I was sitting there lost in thought, a chicken came up and pecked me on the tail, scared the fool out of me. I snarled at her and made her squawk and flap her wings. That's another thing about this job. Every day, every night, you put your life on the line, and for what? Those idiot birds just soon peck you on the tail as to say good morning to you. Sometimes you wonder if it's worth it, and all that keeps you going is dedication to duty. In the end, that's what separates the top echelon of cow dogs with the common rabble or rubble. Whatever the word is, anyway, the dogs that don't give a rip is what I'm trying to say. Well, I had nothing to work with, no evidence, no case. There wasn't a thing I could do until the killer struck again. I could only hope that me and Drover would catch it in the act. So I decided to change strategy. Instead of throwing a guard around the chicken house, we would use the stakeout approach. Now, stakeout is a technical term in which we use in this business, which Webster defines stake as length of wood or metal with a sharpened point to driving into the ground. It comes from the Anglo-Saxon word stocka, akin to the Danish word stock. Out is defined as away from or removed from some place, position, or situation. It comes from the Middle English ut. That's about as technical as I can make it. In layman's term, a stakeout is basically a trap. You leave the chicken house unguarded, don't you see, and watch and wait and wait and watch until the villain makes his move, and then you swoop in and get him. It's pretty simple, really, when you get used to the technology. Now, at dark, me and Drover staked the place out. We hid in some tall weeds, maybe 30, 40 yards away from the chicken house. Time sure did drag. First couple of hours, we heard the coyotes howling in the pastures. Drover kept looking around with his big eyes. I thought he might try to slip off to the machine shed, but he didn't, and after a while he laid his head down and went to sleep. Now, I could have kept him awake. Pulled rank and demanded that he stayed awake. But I thought, what the heck? He probably needed the sleep. I figured I could keep watching, wake him up when the time came for action. Then I fell asleep. But the funny thing was about it, I dreamed that I was awake, sitting here and standing guard. I kept saying, "Hank, are you still awake?" And I said, "Hank, sure I am. If I was asleep, you and I wouldn't be talking like this, would we?" And I said, "No, I suppose not." Seems to me it's kind of a waste of good sleep to dream about what you were doing when you were awake. But that's what happened. I heard something squawk, and I said, "Hank, what's that?" "Nothing." "You sure?" "Sure, I'm sure. Wide awake and watching the stakeout, aren't you?" "I think so, yeah." "Then stop worrying." The squawking went on, and the next thing I knew, Drover was jumping up and down. "Hank! Hank! Oh, Hank! Hey, he's back! Bloody murder! Blood! 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 I fell asleep. Oh my gosh, Hank! Wake up!" "Huh? I ain't asleep." And then my right eye popped up. My left eye popped up. I woke up. Dang the luck! I was asleep. I was afraid of that. We dashed off into the weeds, and I found a body south of the chicken house door. The M.O. was the same. There's another technical term, M.O. It stands for modus of operationis, which means how it was done. We shorten it to M.O. A pattern began to emerge. The killer had struck twice. Both times he'd killed a white leghorn hen. Actually, that might not have been a crucial point because there isn't any other colored hens out on the place. But I mention it to demonstrate the kind of deep thinking that goes in when solving a case like this. You can't overlook a single detail, even if it doesn't mean anything. But the most revealing clue was that the murderer didn't drag the victim off. That meant he hadn't killed for food, but only for the sport of it. In other words, we had a pathological killer on the loose. Now, this is very significant. The first big break in the case. At last, I had an M.O. that narrowed the suspects down to coyotes, raccoons, skunks, badgers, foxes, rats. It hadn't eliminated anybody. I was right back where I started. I hunkered down and I studied the body. It was still warm. Warm chicken. My mouth began to water, and I noticed a rumble in my stomach. The fresh evidence was pointing the case in a whole new direction. Drover, why don't you run on and get some sleep? We've had a rough day. Oh, I'm awake now. You look sleepy. I do. Yes, you do. Your eyes look kind of baggy. Do you think we should sound the alarm? No, not just yet. I need to do a little more study on the corpse. My stomach growled real loud. Drover's ears perked up. What was that? I didn't hear anything. He waited and listened. I concentrated on making my stomach shut up. You can do that, you know. Control your body with your mind. Only it didn't work this time. My stomach growled again, sounded like a rusty gate hinge. What was that? Rigor mortis, I said. Chickens do that. Now run along and get some sleep. We've got a big day ahead of us. Well, okay. And he started off, and he heard my stomach again. He turned around and twisted his head and stared at me. Was that you? Don't be absurd. Good night, Drover. He shrugged, went down to the gas tanks. I gave him plenty of time to do a couple of circles, get down, get comfortable, slap at a few mosquitoes, and then fall asleep. My mouth was watering so much it was dripping off my chin. When everything was real quiet, I snatched up the body, loped down to the horse pasture, and began my post-mortem investigation. It was very interesting. I didn't hurry this part of the investigation. I labored over my work for several hours and fell into a peaceful sleep. When I woke up, it was bright daylight. I could feel the rays of the warming sun against my coat. I glanced around, tried to remember where I was, and when I figured it out, my heart almost stopped beating. I was lying in the center of a circle of white feathers, with more feathers clinging to my mouth and nose. My belly bulged, and Sally Mae was standing right over me, a look of horror on her face. "Hank! You're the one! How could you? Oh, Hank, how could you?" "Huh? Wait, no, there'd been a mistake. Well, you see, the chicken was already dead. Hey, listen, I can explain everything." It must have looked pretty bad laying there in the midst of all that damaging evidence. Sally Mae headed down to the house, swinging her arms, walking real fast. I didn't know what to do. If I ran, it would look bad. If I stayed, it looked bad. No matter what I did, it would look bad. Maybe eating the darn chicken had been a mistake. I was still sitting there mulling over my next course when Sally Mae returned with her husband. "There, look! You see who's been killing the chickens? Your dog!" I whapped my tail against the ground and put on my most innocent face. Loper and I had been through a lot together. Surely he would know that his head of ranch security wasn't a common chicken-killing dog. He had to trust me. But I could see his face harden, and I knew I was cooked. "Hank, bad dog. I never would have thought of this about you." "I didn't. It was a mistake. I've been framed." "Come here, Hank." I crawled over to him. He picked up the chicken head that was laying on the ground, and he tied a piece of string to it, and then he was about to tie it on my neck. You see, I didn't eat the chicken head. I found that the beaks don't chew too well. "There, you wear that chicken head around your neck. Maybe it'll help you remember that your killing hens doesn't pay around here." They left, talking in low voices, shaking their heads. I tried to bite the string off, but I couldn't get the thing to do it. I just couldn't do it. I was feeling mighty low, mighty blue. I was ashamed of myself, but also outraged at the injustice of it all. Oh, I headed down to the corral to find Drover. Instead, I ran into Pete the barn cat, just the guy I didn't want to see. He was sunning himself in front of the saddle shed. In other words, loafing. That's what he does about 95% of the time. The mice were rampant down at the feed barn, but Pete couldn't work a mouse patrol in his busy schedule. It interfered with his loafing. That's a cat for you. Well, he saw me before I saw him. He yawned a big grin and spread across his mouth. "Nice necklace you got there, Hanky. Where could a fella buy one of those?" You had to be in a mood for Pete, and I wasn't. I made a dive for him, and he escaped an instant of death by a matter of inches. He hissed and ran. I fell in right behind him. I chased him all around the corrals. He hissed, I barked. There were several horses in the west lot, and they all started bucking and kicking up their heels. It was my lousy luck that Slim happened to be riding one of them. A 2-year-old colt, as I recall. He started yelling, "Hank, get out of here! Come on, Sinbad! Easy, Bronc! Whoa, whoa! Hank!" Nobody ever yells at the cat. Why? I don't know. I just don't understand. I gave up the chase. I'd have to settle accounts with Pete some other day. I loped over to the gas tank looking for Drover. He heard me coming, sat up, saw the chicken head around my neck, and he took off, sprinted for the machine shed as fast as he could. "Drover, it's just me, old Hank." He kept going. I guess he didn't want to get caught or get involved. with a criminal. I went down to the gas tank and lay down. Boy, I felt low. I tried to sleep, but I didn't have much luck. The chicken head was starting to stink, and I reminded me all over of the injustice of it all. Off in the distance, I could hear Pete. He was still up in a tree. He'd climbed to escape my attack. He was singing a song called Mamas, Don't Let Your Cowdog Grow Up to Be Cowdogs. And then he stopped singing. I could hear him laughing. It really got up under my skin. I laid there brooding for a long time. Then I pushed myself up. It was clear. All of a sudden, it was clear what I would have to do. They left me no choice. I took one last look at my bedroom there under the gas tank, started up the hill. As I passed by the machine shed door, Drover stuck his head out. Psst! Where are you going? I trotted past. I'm leaving. He crept out in the distance to see if anybody was watching. Leaving! That's right. I quit. I resign. His jaw dropped. You can't do that. You just watch me. This chicken head was the last straw. I'm fed up with this place. I'm moving on. Moving? Where are you going? I don't know yet. West, towards the setting sun. He was quiet for a minute, and then, I'll go with you. No, you won't. How come? Because, Drover, I'm starting a new life. I'm going to become an outlaw. That's right. They've driven me to it. I tried to run the ranch, but it just didn't work. I'm going back to the wild. One of these days, they'll be sorry. But Hank! Goodbye, Drover. Take care of things. I'm sorry the way it ended. Next time we meet, it won't be Hank the Cowdog. I'll be Hank the Outlaw. And with that, I trotted off to a new life. Life as a criminal, outcast, nomad, wild dog. So ends another chapter. But tonight we come back with chapter 6, Buzzards. Thanks for joining in. Hope to see you tomorrow night.